Hello again. So, I guess this is the third episode of But on Film. I the first video I did got a weirdly large amount of views within like the first day. I got over like 50 views, which is insane to me. So there's gonna be at least a couple more. Uh, I guess I'm gonna start by saying like every time I've made one of these videos and like shared it to social media, I always have this little bit where I go like, why would you watch this? It's just me ranting at you for like a half hour. Uh, like it's crazy to me that people would watch it. It's not like I should say that's not like a false modesty on my part or some sort of weird like ploy to get people to be like, "Oh no, you're so great! It's amazing!" And I just go, "Oh, thank you." That sort of thing. That's not what I'm going for. I don't need the ego boost. Trust me, my ego's inflated enough as is, especially considering like the reality of whatever's going on here. So, uh, best way I think to look at these videos is this is a way for me to like get these weird movie based thoughts out of my brain so I don't bug you with them in real life if I know you in real life. If I don't know you in real life, I double down on the like, why would you watch this? Like if these videos came up in my feed, I wouldn't watch them. But teach their own, that sort of thing. So get to the point, the theme of this video will be movies that feel very current or very now, which is sort of a weird thing to say. Like, I mean, how does not any movie being made in the present day feel very current? But I mean, right now we're seeing like a floodgate of weird nostalgia-based films, like '80s throwback movies, and so basically, it's sort of like a decade, this decade, I guess, pop culture wise, will be sort of seen as a mashup of just trying to recreate the '80s, while at the same time, I think a lot of it doesn't really work because they want that sort of style of the '80s, but at the same time, there's such a current fear of falling into a campy area or like a just coming across as a little corny, so that so many movies that sort of try to do that still have these like muted tones to them, so they just become this weird like neon skittle barf that and beyond just sort of referencing stuff, there's a lot of them don't have much substance to them. And the other thing is just Marvel movies, superhero movies, constantly. If you're a Marvel fan, like every week there's a new show or a new movie. It's just constantly coming out. So that's what this last like decade plus will be known for most likely. So these are going to be movies that are like, I think, sort of catch onto this sort of pop culture zeitgeist of now, while not totally falling into those like pitfalls that are these other more popular films tend to do. And I wish people would pay them more attention, or like just watch them in the first place. A lot of them are not big successes or just box office failures if they even got a decent theatrical release at all in North America. So yeah, talking about like trying not to like get these thoughts out so I don't bug you in real life, because one of the movies I constantly bug people about in real life to talk about, because I always want to talk about it and nobody fucking saw it, was Vox Lux. Vox Lux, right there. That one. I saw this movie in the theater, and to sort of talk about like how I want people to see this movie, but then nobody could see it. I saw it on like the last day of its theatrical run in Toronto. So like in the last theater that was showing it, which I think it only showed in like one or two. So I was like, everybody should go see this movie, but I guess now you can't. So Vox Lux, I fucking really love this movie. It's really like seems to capture the current rise of the like art school pop star or artistic-y inclined pop star, which you can say like that goes back to stuff like Madonna. Like I guess Madonna would, you could say she has a bit of like artsy influence or that sort of thing. I mean, she's certainly iconic and influenced a lot of pop to come. But I mean, I don't really like Madonna, truth be told. I like getting that out of the way. She always struck me as more, and I don't think she ever like made any bones about it. She was more business than art. Business first, art second, sort of. So she's, while being very popular and influential, and I can see why, she didn't strike me as being like interested in trying like weird new things or that sort of thing. I mean, you can say she reinvented. If you're a Madonna fan, you probably say she reinvented herself multiple times and all this stuff, but not for me. I mean, if we're talking about current like art pop stars, Grimes for me is number one. Sia number two, who does the soundtrack to this movie and does a hell of a fucking job. And this, like, the soundtrack to this movie is awesome. Like, Natalie Portman plays grown up. This is the story of a pop star called Celeste, who sort of, as a young teen, she gets shot in a school shooting, but she survives. It just messes with her spinal cord in her back, so she constantly has back pain. But while she's recovering in the hospital, she writes a song, and it plays it at the sort of memorial for the students who were lost during that, and it just catches on. It becomes a hit right away, and she easily could have sort of become a one-hit wonder. A lot of that sort of thing does usually. I mean, almost always it does. But she had more going for her than that, had just a real creative edge. Even though I think in the movie it often implies and heavily says at parts that her sister writes a lot of the songs, the character of Celeste. This is like, part of the thing about this movie is like, every time I watch it, I wish Celeste was a real pop star so I could obsess over every move and decision and just see her shows and like her music. It's so funny. Like I'm generally like, I used to be so anti pop. I mean, when I was a teenager, like the pop music that was coming out was all like very studio manufactured. Like it was like all Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, that sort of thing. Britney Spears. I mean, you know, Britney Spears now, but like her early days, I don't think she had much of a creative hand in anything she did. So I was into, like in high school, I was into nu metal and like rap and bad Fat Records style punk bands. So, you know, a lot of like silly fucking late 90s, early 2000s stuff. You know, it took me a little bit to, I still like that stuff. Who am I kidding? Some of the stuff is not aged as well as the others, but I enjoy it. But anyway, back to Vox Lux. So the first half of the movie is the character of Celeste is played by a younger actress named Raffi Cassidy. And then the second half, it's played by Natalie Portman. And the second half is all like, so first half is her, she's recovering, and then after she does that song and it catches on, She gets a manager, and played by Jude Law. In like he's really like lately he's been doing some really interesting movies, and seems to be having fun with it. I mean, he's always been kind of like a he seems like a talented actor who, like, occasionally he'll take like a job that, why wouldn't you? It's a good paycheck, and then like later on it'll lead to other stuff. But maybe not the most interesting character. But lately he seems to be mostly doing just weird, interesting movies. So Jude Law is her manager, and so it goes through the process of her getting her first like record deal, recording her first singles, and like learning dance choreography that she has to do a sort of simplified version of because of the damage to her back. And then the second half is it starts with like sort of almost not a one take, but like a very like in the moment showing of her like before a big comeback show after a scandal she's had involving a car drunken driving or and fucking like drugged up driving or something like that. And then eventually like the climax of the movie is her concert, and it's honestly, like, this is one of those cases where I'm like, you could have gone on longer with that. I would love to just see a live show of this. It was really cool, and the music's really good. Natalie Portman fucking knocks it out of the park in this one. Like, it's the best role I've seen her in for a while, or at least the one I've most enjoyed. So, and she's like, it's just like the whole time before the concert, she's on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She's, doing drugs she shouldn't. Like she's getting messed up, and a lot of stresses, various things. She's had her own daughter, who is again played by the actress Raffi Cassidy, Raffi, I don't know, like banana song. So the same actress plays her daughter, so she plays like a double role in it. Yeah, so like it's just Natalie Portman being wacky. It's pretty fun. And again, the kind of thing I would adore watching in my pop stars. I mean, like I said with Grimes, like she's like persona non grata now because of the whole Elon Musk thing. But honestly, that just kind of endears her to me more, because like Elon Musk kind of had like a pretty good like public image before Grimes. I've literally had friends of mine say like they thought he would like save the world with his like green technology and stuff. And yeah. But then like Grimes introduced him to psychedelics, and he's just been a public relations nightmare ever since. It's so funny to me. And then like just weird stuff that she does. It's really like Bollywood influenced. And when I found out that Giddy Primes is a Dune concept album, I'm like, God damn it! I wish Grimes had got to direct Dune. Like, forget Denis Villeneuve. That movie looks boring as hell. I want a Grimes Dune. Come on, man. Grimes and Sia collaborating on the soundtrack. That would be amazing. So yeah, Vox Lux. If you haven't seen it yet, please watch it, or don't. It's up to you. Second one. This is another movie that I saw in the theater, and I really surprised me. Ingrid Goes West. At this point, I was pretty much going to any movie that looked kind of interesting at the Carlton. And I worked right around the corner from it. Some days I just finish work and wander over. And I caught this Ingrid Goes West in a double bill with a really cool zombie movie called It Stains the Sands Red. The director of that, I'll probably do a video on him later on, because he's a really interesting horror director who doesn't seem to get enough attention. Not that I'm gonna help his career. No, but Ingrid Goes West. Yeah, I went into it like the trailer was like, it looks interesting, I guess. Could be okay. Um, then this one kind of really caught me by surprise. Is Ingrid, played by Aubrey Plaza. She's like a mentally unwell woman who I don't know what her particular diagnosis is. I'm not an expert on these things. She gets obsessed with people on social media and inserts herself into their lives. In the particular case of this, an influencer called Elizabeth Olsen. So she basically, Aubrey Plaza uproots her life, Ingrid uproots her life, and moves to like California to be closer to this Elizabeth Olsen social social media influencer lady. It's really like kind of a, vain and shallow person, but, puts a good foot forward on the social media. So Aubrey Plaza gets weirdly obsessed with her and goes to California, and then sort of like through a series of like fake meetups, like, she sees that she's going to this place on whatever, Instagram or whatever, and then goes there to purposely bump into her, and kind of becomes her friend, and then eventually Elizabeth Olsen finds out. And stuff gets a little awkward. Also, I can't remember his name, but Ice Cube's son, who plays a really good character in this. He's this guy who really likes Ingrid. He's like her landlord. He's got a crush on her, and he's like obsessed with writing a Batman screenplay. But his favorite Batman is Batman Forever, so it's all in the same vein as like a Batman Forever stuff. Again, like I'm talking about like social media, this one really like felt current and now in a way that people weren't really talking about that much at the time it came out. There was another movie that came out maybe even in the same year that sort of had a similar theme. It's like, I would almost say they're like bookend movies, called Like Me. I don't own that movie, and I think deep down I like this one a bit better. But Like Me is like a creepier version of it. It's borders on being like a bit of a horror thriller at times. Kind of surreal too. Pretty cool. Like, you should watch Like Me also. But I don't know, I don't own it, and so it's easier to do this thing. Even though there's one movie later that I also don't own, and yeah. But I found a way around it. I'll show you. When you get to it, you'll see. I don't even know if this really fits into this category. Tag. Sion Sono's Tag. Not the Tag movie that came out around the same time that's about a bunch of guys who play tag all their lives until they're grown-ups. This is a completely different movie than that. Sion Sono, Japanese director, who I have said many times I legitimately believe he is the best director alive and working today, and Tag is a big part of why I believe that. This movie rocks my socks. Every time I watch it, I have to watch it like the very next day again. It has this like incredible power over my emotions. It's just there's this thing I get with I'm very like, because I'm maybe like a big music fan as well as a movie fan. And I think a lot of filmmakers underestimate the power of a good score or backing soundtrack. There's this thing I get when the music rises in a certain way and the scene is also like emotionally powerful. It just gets me. Just like instantly, I'm a mess, or I'm just like, like it really like works on me. Even like, there's bad movies that like have figured out the sort of trick to it, and that still kind of works for a minute, but then I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't particularly good, but this one's good all the way through, and it does that, and it does it so effectively, like not like the score mixed with how like the actions go, and just like some of the camera movements, the performances, particularly from this girl. I don't know her name. I think she's like, I think I looked it up at one point, and she was a bit of a pop singer in Japan, but this was maybe like one of her first. I don't really remember. But she is amazing. Like, you really feel her fear constantly in this movie. There's this ever looming threat, and she makes it very real. And it's especially effective because the threat is kind of like it's not like a physical threat that you can tangibly see. It's this weird, like, otherworldly thing. This movie is almost entirely metaphor. It's not like the girl gets kung fu powers and then she beats the bad guy or whatever. It's pretty much entirely a metaphor. I'm not going to say what it's for or even really try to detail the plot, because I really think, like, part of the cool thing about watching this movie for the first time is letting it unravel for you and trying to figure it out, and maybe going down a couple of false leads, that sort of thing. A lot of people, like people who I've talked to who have actually seen this movie, there's near the end they sort of do this like sort of revealing what is going on, but that is also a metaphor. So it's not a like, if you think this movie is a video game, or like the reality they're living is a video game, you'd miss the point. Sort of thing. It's not that. I'm pretty sure I've figured it out. I mean, I haven't double checked with Sion Sono, but I'm pretty sure if the whole thing is like, you think there's a video, like there's a Matrix sort of thing where they're in a video game, you're wrong. It's all like, that's just another metaphor. So if you're trying to find like a real answer for what's going on in this, you're not going to get it through that. This movie is amazing. It'll stand the test of time. Part of the thing with like saying something is very current now, you sort of like go, well, I mean, I probably thought like Hackers was really current now in 1995 or 1996, whenever that came out. And it's like, how will that age in time? I mean, I don't really think movies age bad or good. I think like everything's sort of a product of its time and place. But the interesting thing, part of the problem, like I was talking about earlier with this whole like 80s nostalgia thing, where they don't want to fall into the camp factor, so they're worried that people will sort of make fun of their movies or whatever, find them silly, which is like just more entertaining if it's kind of silly. I mean, look at Malignant recently. Like, I think part of the problem with a lot of producers thinking that is stuff tends to become kind of silly within a 10-year span. All those movies from the 80s that they're referencing now in this nostalgia wave is like, in the 90s they were considered ridiculous. And it took like at least things go in like, they're silly 10 years after that, and then another 10 years passes and people feel the nostalgia for them and then want to watch them again, or want to like emulate them or their style, that sort of thing. So you can't avoid the camp factor. If it'll happen whether you want it to or not. It's just, ideas change in time. What people think is important changes with time. So that will always inherently happen. And so, I mean, guaranteed, people are gonna look at like a scene where the Avengers are hanging around drinking coffee while wearing their costumes and sort of like hanging out and be like, man, that's silly. And a little bit, like, guaranteed to happen. And final movie, and this is like talking about my getting around. Um, I'll just use my iPad because I don't own this movie. That looks terrible. Can you even see what that is? At Zola. That didn't work. Whatever. At Zola. I just saw it like maybe like a month or two ago. I rented it from iSore. It did get a theatrical release, though COVID issues, and honestly, people say it was sort of promoted, but I didn't know about it until after it was already out in theaters, and the trailer again, like A24 usually like they're one of their strongest things with like A24, the production company or distributor or whatever they really are. They have a really good in-house editor for their trailers. Whoever it is, like, makes their movies look very interesting most of the time. With that one, it was sort of like, I'm like, this could really go either way. But I was intrigued. And so I didn't go see it when it was in its very small release in theaters during, like theaters had opened, but, half capacity or whatever. But as soon as like iSore got it, iSore Cinema, the video rental store in Toronto, if you're watching this from out of Toronto and aren't an iSore regular, iSore Cinema got it in pretty shortly after the theatrical run was done, and I rented it like right away because part of me, I guess I did really want to see it. I wanted to see it like immediately. And I really liked it. It's a really good movie. It based on a series of tweets that told a story about a stripper getting into a really bad situation. And it's funny and like a really well told story. Zola is her name. She basically befriends this other stripper, and the other stripper says, like, why don't we go on this road trip to these various places I know? We can make a lot of money in a short period of time. They become really good friends immediately, and then like right away, things like Zola, the main character, realizes that she's being screwed, and there's a lot of trouble that happens. But it does this really like it plays the line so well where it's like all the nasty threats feel really threatening and scary, but at the same time it's very funny. So it never it doesn't lose the tension for just some yucks, and it doesn't lose the yucks for serious times. It's very good, and like lots of parts of it feel like a modern exploitation movie, which I mean, like, it's obviously very professionally made and stuff, but I can't remember the actress's name who plays Zola, but like the camera worships her ass for a good, like throughout most of the movie. It's pretty wild. So many butt shots. I mean, she's got a great butt. Kudos, lady. So yeah, it's a great movie. Watch it. Watch them all if you want to. Vox Lux. Tag. And Ingrid goes west. And I'm not going to bring up Etzola again because the reflection looks shitty. They're all like, yeah, like I said, felt like very contemporary, sort of, I guess maybe just hitting on themes that are very talked about themes right now, or within the last few years, because I think a couple of these are like 2015 or something like that. So, but like, it really does seem like so few movies made now are interested in talking about now. It's a weird state. I mean, particularly Hollywood movies. that's a lot of the problem. It's just Hollywood is whatever's going on there. It's a weird scene right now. I mean, I'm sure it was always a really weird scene, but their particular, like, you could usually depend on Hollywood to, you know, knock a few out of the park every so often, even, you know, despite the weird studio system and how it's done. But it just seems like lately, at least for me, like, I have no interest in anything being made by, like, major studios, being, like, big budget movies. You know, I think, like, you know, I'm sure, like, some money went into Vox Lux. I mean, Natalie Portman and Jude Law are in it. Money probably went into Ingrid Goes West for sure. And probably, like, you know, the moderate budget films they consider, like, or, like, in Hollywood terms, like, low budget, which is probably, like, $50 million or some shit. But, like nobody saw them. I mean, like, I'm sure a few people saw them, but like they didn't set the box office on fire. I think both movies were kind of a loss, where it's like unfortunate because I think Ingrid Goes West was the director's first movie. I really wanted to see like what he did next. I don't know, maybe he's got something coming out now, but or soon, but I haven't kept up since then. Vox Lux, this was like the director's second movie. I haven't seen his first one yet, but it looks really interesting as well. And he's an actor as well, the director who did this. So you get really great performances. And he doesn't fall into the... I find a lot of actors who become directors, particularly big actors who become directors, they have a tendency to just ape the style of whatever director they like working with most. Probably whatever director was willing to like go, oh yeah, here's how you do this and this and this when they ask the questions. So like if you watch George Clooney's like directing movies, they just feel like Steven Soderbergh movies, like lesser Steven Soderbergh movies. If you watch like the Ryan Gosling directing movie, it just feels like a Nicholas Winding Refn movie. So at least as far as I could tell, like this doesn't feel like some other director's lesser work. It feels like a unique new voice that is interesting and grabbed me, like made me like really passionate about it. And like I get like obsessed with certain movies when I see them. I'm like, I gotta tell people about this shit. It's really good. I gotta grab them and tell them. But you know, people rarely listen. Why would you? To me, that sort of thing. So yeah, movies that sort of feel contemporary, or at least good, weird little movies. Watch them if you wanna, or don't. I'll catch you next time. Bye.